Okay, welcome to the Kenpo Corner episode number 8. In this episode, we're going to go over kimono grab as well as talk about its relatives, lone kimono and twin kimono from the American Kenpo system. So let's bow in and get started. Okay, so kimono grab. Kimono grab is similar to the American Kenpo techniques, lone kimono and twin kimono. Lone and twin kimono are basically the same technique, with twin being obviously two hands rather than one, and an extra step and strike in there. So let's first show you, not American Kenpo, but Tracy's Kenpo Karate and White Tiger Kenpo Karate version of kimono grab. So let me do it from this angle so you can see it better. What the is you got someone coming up and they're grabbing you. And as we've talked about before in many of my training videos, people don't just grab and stand there. They're going to be shoving you around, pushing you, or they're trying to get you off balance so that they can throw a punch. Usually a grab is followed by a punch, or a shove is followed by a punch. So as long as they got both hands on you, we know where two of their weapons are. So they're more interested in this than anything else. So we wanted to defend immediately, start the counter attack. So as soon as they grab, remember, they're going to try to shove. So we want to get our foot back and get ourselves in a very stable position. So rather than using a hard bow, we're going to go into a soft bow because we want to do our underarm or uppercut forearm break. So as the hands, they come in and shove, we're going to pin those hands. Now we're not trapping them, we're just pinning them, so if they move, we know it, okay? So don't focus too much on making sure that maintains that. I usually put most of my palm on the outside one, because this way if I need to, I can roll over, I can control the arm a little better. So you pin the hand, and as you pin back, you're going to go to a soft bow, okay? Because this is what we're going to need, a power pattern. And since this is an upward trajectory strike, we're going to need a circular power pattern, so that's where the soft bow will come into place. So we step back and we break, okay? And this really isn't going to break the arm as much as it's going to hyperextend those arms and hopefully damage and make them sore and hard to use. So as we step back, we're going to forearm strike right above the elbow joint, okay? You want above it. So right in here is where you're targeting. You want those tricep tendons. You don't want down here because this is a forearm. A lot of bone in there. You don't want the elbow because big pointy bone hurts. So you want to get back up in here above the elbow where you're into the triceps and the other muscle groups. So as we step back, we want to come up with our forearm right under or right above that point. Then we're going to go back to our soft bow so that we can come over the top, and we're going to do a figure 8 motion. So from here, I'll do it from this direction. Break or attempt to break, back to soft bow as the hand comes up, over, and strikes the throat. So this is just going to be 1, 2. So what you're doing is you're taking those hands, you're slapping them down, and the face is going to come out, which is going to expose that throat, which is what we're looking for. So 1, you get them up on their toes. 2, you jerk that head forward, you strike the throat, and then you do your cradle and crush. Now let's talk about the strike through the throat. A lot of people do this as a quick chop to the throat. I go through it and use it to set up my elbow strike. So rather than coming here and pulling back, I generate that twist and continue that circular motion, so I don't lose any ground I've gained. So, and there's, within Tracy's, there's 2 variations, A and B, with the only difference between a shuffle or a not shuffle. And then the White Tiger Kenpo has an A, B, C, and D, where they show you how to use the locks and for takedowns and so forth on C and D, with A and B being the traditional kimono grab. So you pin, you step back, you break those arms, you come back to soft bow. Slap that hand down, expose that throat, strike through the throat into a cradle and crush, hammer fist, back kick, and cross out. And that's how White Tiger and Tracy's do kimono grab. Now its relative is lone kimono and twin kimono. Now lone kimono in American Kenpo, I believe, is in like orange belt. So you're going to step back, just like we did before on the Tracy version, we'll say, and you're going to come up underneath that single arm, because now you just got one hand. So you got someone shoving you, okay? So you obviously know that there's a punch coming, because if there's only one hand, that leaves the other hand free to strike. So as you step back, you want to pin that hand, and you want to kind of pull them back. So as they grab, it pulls that arm off balance, which makes it harder to punch with the other hand. So we're going to step back, and then you're going to break. Okay, just like we did on the White Tiger Tracy version. And then they're going to come back down. Now, they don't come in and slap downward as much as they do an inward diagonal block and strike down and at an angle to the arms and then strike the throat. And that's all they do for lone kimono. So again, for lone kimono, is you step back, you break underneath the arm, you come in and you strike down and then chop. Okay? And then their twin kimono, which is the same thing, except now you got two hands on you, similar, more closer to the kimono grab that we teach than lone kimono. So you step back, you still do the break, but this time they adjust slightly. Okay, where we stand stationary, they adjust slightly to, I guess, about the 430 position as they do a back fist. Boom. Okay, that's going to double that guy over, and then they're going to come in and strike that hand down, and then they chop the throat. Okay, they don't do a back kick, they don't strike the groin. Theirs is all from the waist up as far as the strikes go. So you have lone kimono, which you step back and break, and then you come in, inward diagonal block, and chop the throat. And they chop with a pop, boom, in and out, okay? Unlike the way I teach is with a strike, and I think Tracy's does the strike, a straight in and out too. Then you have the twin version of this, same thing but two hands. Then we're going to adjust slightly as we back knuckle. Then we're going to drive that hand down, expose that throat, and chop them in the throat. Okay, now that you've seen all three versions, they're all basically the same. The principle is the same for all of them. What happens is someone grabs you, first thing is, no matter what, you're going to get yourself stable. Now, depending on how you're following up, depends on how you're going to get that stability. In this case, we want to use a circular action, so we need a soft bow to develop that power pattern. So as someone comes up and grabs, whether it's one hand or two, we are going to step back and set up in case they push. Also, if they don't push, if they for some reason just come up and grab, maybe they're kind of lift or something to it like that, you want to pull them forward. This will pull them forward. So if I'm grabbing somebody and they step back, I'm going to go forward, okay, in order to maintain that grip. So that's one of the things we could be looking at. As you step back, they're going to come forward a little bit. Those arms are going to be fully extended. You're going to hyperextend them even further. And by putting your hand here, you're creating a base. So it's kind of like pressing down with your left and pushing up with your right. Okay? So you're just going to, boom, pop that right up there. Okay? Now, unlike lone and kimono, we're going to come back in. Boom. We're going to come back, and then we're going to do a strike down. Okay, we're not going to come in with our inward, we're going to do more of a downward. Okay, that's the other difference between the three techniques, is they come in with more an inward, a diagonal inward block, while we come in more with a slap block. Kind of like bouncing the hands off the arm, and then figure eight motion right into the throat. Okay, so one, come in and pop. Okay, so when you do lone kimono and kimono grab, they do the same thing. They come in and break, but then one, they pop straight. They don't do a figure eight motion, and they don't do a cradle and crush. Okay, so they're similar, but they're not complete. In other words, they don't do the whole entire thing like kimono grab like we do, even though the techniques are related in the sense of the basic structure of it. Kind of like being brothers. You guys are related because you look similar, but you guys are each individuals of your own. So it's like having a sibling. You can call these our siblings, our lone and twin kimono siblings to kimono grab. because you're going to come in 1, 2, chop, cradle, hammer fist, back kick, and cross out. Now, as you notice, this is one of the few times we do cross out. We cross out with some sumo, and we cross out with this one, and the reason we do that is because we've thrown a back kick. That is what we call a finishing technique. The idea is that should be the end of the confrontation. But if not, I'm still in a position to continue on with the fight. But hopefully after I've thrown that back kick, whoever I'm trying to defend against has had enough. So you're going to pin, step back, break, back to stance, clear, chop, cradle and crush, roll over, kick, and back. Now if you notice, I go smooth, okay? It's one continuous motion. My hand does not stop. It just continuously generates speed and power. And then lone kimono and twin kimono, they do the same thing. 1, 2, and chop. That's where they end for lone kimono. And then 2, like I said, on twin, here, they adjust. So there's a lot more stopping and going with their particular technique than there is with the Tracy's White Tiger Kenpo. Now, Tracy's, when they do a lot of techniques, they're more leaning toward the Japanese style of martial arts. And by that I mean they do a lot more linear, like Chinese sword, 1, 2. See, kind of a little more rigid to it. Same thing with this, 1, down, pop. Okay, they don't necessarily flow one into the other the way I teach my students. Not that one's better or one's worse, they're both just as good, they're both just as effective. It's just a different viewpoint on how to do the same thing with the technique, which is why I like to teach the American Kenpo techniques in my group classes. It gives the students a different viewpoint. I also show them how Tracy does some of the techniques that we've changed. There again, it gives them a different viewpoint. Explain to them why we've changed it, why we do it this way as compared to that way. Because I want them to have a well-rounded education, not just my own personal thoughts on things. I want them to develop their own nice Kenpo system by melding all of these Kenpo styles together. So, lone kimono again. 1, downward, inward block, and chop. Okay? Unlike Tracy's Kenpo, they don't follow it up with the rest of the technique. And then twin kimono, instead of having one hand, they have 2, twin, grabbing 2 hands, grabbing a gi or clothes, which is what a kimono is, it's clothing. So basically 2 hands on clothing. So we're going to pin, we're going to drive up, and then we're going to adjust slightly. Now this isn't a dancer kind of adjustment. In other words, we're not trying to become parallel with them. All we're trying to do is get to the outside a little bit more of the attack rather than staying inside. Also, when we step back, we're stepping back open rather than closed. And the reason for this is we want to be able to pivot to soft bow for that first strike. If we were to step back straight open, straight down like we would if we were doing an initial block, then we don't have the ability to get that power generated. We'd have to reset ourselves. So that's where the stance is important. It's not only there to help stabilize you, but it's also there to set up your first strike in kimono grab. And then you want to go back down. Now whether you're doing lone or kimono grab, you're going to go from soft bow to horse. Because there again, torquing. Torque is a circular action. So therefore, using a circular action, we're going to need a soft bow. So we're going to come in and we're going to strike down, okay, at an angle. This sets up the hand for this chop to the throat. Then from there, that's all there is. And then on B, there again, we try to get to the outside. So we start off just like A with the break, but then we get to the outside and we back knuckle. That doubles them over, that exposes that throat, brings it a lot closer to us, and then we chop the throat. And then they would cross out. But there again, as I pointed out several times, unless you're throwing like a finishing kick, such as a back kick, a spinning back kick, a crossing back kick, we do not cross out. We do not teach you to cross out because we want you to stay there and be in a position to re-engage without having to start over. If you cross out and you have to re-engage, then you got to gain all that distance back. So we don't cross out unless we're pretty sure we've finished the technique. So that's the basic difference between lone kimono, twin kimono, and kimono grab. They're all related. You can see how they're similar. You can see where the Tracy's got the technique from and how it applies. So I hope this helps you understand that particular technique a little better. It gives you a little more insight into it. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Kenpo Corner. Until our next episode, as always, I hope you keep moving forward, and we'll see you again in your next episode.